All right. Hello and welcome, Just a Family. Excuse me, this is giving you something to talk about, or just the live TV as I like to call it. Today, we're going to be talking about stop giving away your power. And I'm really excited for this episode. I think it's going to be quite the interesting topic. So get involved, leave us a comment, ask any questions if you catch us live. If not, feel free to reach out to either myself or Trista. Links in the description of this episode. Today's episode has been featured by a Phoenix Identity. Would you like to step in your power, your unique power that you hold to create anything your mind that you set your mind to, right? The power of confidence, self-love, and action to guide you to something more. Take advantage of a clarity session, link in the description. So go and check that out. All right, I'm going to hand it over to our guest speaker and let's get started.
Thank you. So my name is Trista Guertin. I am a humanitarian aid worker living in Lebanon by day, and in the evenings and weekends, I am a life coach and mentor for women who are feeling stuck. So anyone who is feeling that they can't make a decision or sort of are at a crossroads in their life and not quite sure how to move forward, I can help them move forward, I guess, and start really creating the life that they do want.
That's awesome. All right. So stop giving away your power. We were talking about this in the pre-screening. I'm just grabbing our notes. I didn't grab them prior to. People give their power away way too often. Like it's such a common thing that we do. And I think that everybody gives their power away. It's not just men or women or non-binary, anything along those lines. But I do feel as a woman, as somebody who works with women, we do tend to give it away a lot more frequently than most people. And I think that comes along with people pleasing, that comes along with, culturally, ethnically, societal, the way that we're taught to be a people pleaser, to we have this mold that we have to fit, and falling into that mold and just creating these same routines and cycles and everything that comes up when you're trying to create this happy and healthy life. It's hey, I have to get married and I have to have kids and white picket fence and all of these things. And then we get to that point and it's like, okay, but I'm not feeling fulfilled and I'm not feeling happy. And I feel like there's something more. And I feel like I'm just, living every day. What's the word I'm looking for? Living every day, kind of like a spectator in somebody else's life.
True. Yes. No, I think you're right. And I think it also goes back to the way we're socialized and the way we're brought up. We're supposed to be nice. We're supposed to be considerate. We're supposed to put others first. We're the caregivers. So I see a lot of women who, yes, you're right. Like, we grow up, we get married, we have children, we take care of the family. We put other people's needs first. And then we reach a point where, the kids start growing up, they need us less. You've been married for 25, 30 years, and then, you're not so, I don't want to say close, but, like your husband and the relationships, and, you've had the time, you've grown your family, and then you're sort of left with, okay, now what, right? Like you still have half your life left, and you've just been in this cycle year after year of taking care of others, not even knowing anymore what it is you truly want or what is possible for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do it all the time. So I call them little life crises. Instead of midlife crisis, it's not actually a midlife crisis. We just notice it more. Have you ever noticed, and I question everybody watching, Have you ever noticed that midlife crisis is at that point where you're getting ready to retire? Your kids are old enough to leave the house. Your stereotypical midlife crisis is your 40s and 50s. And that at that point, if you've had your kids in your 20s, then they're becoming adults. You have spent 20 plus years in a career. During all of that time, number one, we forget who we are, and we forget, to take care of ourselves, right? Instead of being Melissa, I'm now Tom's wife. I'm now so-and-so's mother. I'm now, a life coach and all of these other things. And I forget, what does Melissa need every day? What does Melissa need to be happy? What does Melissa strive for? What are my dreams and aspirations? So when you get to that point where your kids are leaving and you've empty nesting, or when you retire and you feel like, well, what do I do now? When your kids are leaving and you don't know who your partner is because you haven't put any effort into that relationship, right? And it's a lack of effort, right? We aren't putting the effort in to say, what do I need? What do you need? Let's make that time. You know how they say that, going on date night once a month, but it's not even just that, it's having those conversations. How are you, right? Like if you're constantly growing, in your entire life, you're constantly growing. So if you're constantly growing, so are the other people around you. So checking in with those people and saying, is it working still? How do we make a few changes that maybe will make us both happy? Maybe, sex isn't an option, a priority anymore. Maybe it should be. Maybe having date night once a month, or even just snuggling and watching a movie with no electronics and no kids, whatever that looks like, is creating the space. Now, doing it for yourself is just as important. What do I need? Do I need to spend a day reading a book? Do I need to spend a day away from my computer, meditating or playing around with crystals, coloring in a coloring book, like little things that are going to feed your happiness and your soul?
Right. Yes. And I think it's so important because I think we're also raised to consider other people's needs, right? And we're sort of like, how can we meet your needs and how can you give me what I need? And we watch all these movies like Jerry Maguire and all, like you complete me and, you're everything I've ever needed and all these things. And in reality, though, the other people, like in our relationships, they can't give us everything that we need. And that's our responsibility. And so learning first and foremost how to have that relationship with yourself and to meet your own needs, because, the other person can't take care of themselves, meet their own needs, let alone, make themselves happy and then try to make you happy along the way, right? Like what you need, you have to give yourself first and foremost. And then you can come together in this relationship, love each other, have fun, grow, look for some of those things that help you to evolve and enjoy life, but not put all this pressure and these unrealistic expectations on the other person that they have to give you everything that you need.
And mothers, parents in general, but mothers. I have 4 children and they range 8 to 21.
Wow.
And so I sit here and I'm like, Mom, I need to eat, or Mom, I need this, or Mom, I need that. And I'm like, no, I need to do this. What can you do for yourself right now? What can you do to make yourself happy? What can you do, right? And if we don't teach them by example, or even just saying, right? So going back to our topic today of, giving away your power, and stop giving away your power. That's one of the main things we do as individuals, is give our power to everybody else's needs, everybody else's wants. So that's where we were going with that first few minutes of the episode. One of the things that I wanted to mention about giving away your power is your past experiences. So this is a huge one. Your past experiences, and I want everybody to do this scenario because it's fun. I want you to think of your worst relationship ever, right? And I want you to think of that relationship and how you felt when you got into that relationship. Not that it can hurt you now, but just how you felt in that relationship. And then think about all the issues that you still hold. If you haven't done the work, what issues do you still hold? Do you go into your next relationship being afraid? Do you go into your next relationship worrying about being cheated on? Do you go into your next relationship with anger and animosity towards, the opposite sex or same sex, whatever, potential partners, and going through that and allowing that to create the issues today? We give our power to our past experiences. Our past experience, we're not going to relive them. Unless you have not done the work to break the cycle, you are not going to relive the exact same thing again. It can't re-hurt you. It can bring up the old feelings, but it can't re-hurt you. So when you bring that past pain into the present, not healed, and I'm going to say that, not healed, then you're allowing it to take away your power of your future, right? If you're scared, you're going to do things based on that fear. If you're angry, you're going to do things based on that anger. You're giving your power away to your ex.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And so that's one of the things I love to mention.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it makes sense. And it's very true. What you focus on, you will create more of. So if that's what you're thinking, and that's, yes, like exactly what you're carrying, and it hasn't been healed, and you still carry that emotional charge, and you're still thinking about it, focusing on it, then yes, absolutely. Then this is what's going to continue to come up. And I think not consciously choosing what you want to focus on and what you want to create does give your power away to your past, to your ex-boyfriend, ex-partner, whomever it is. It's true. And it's just giving it away all to, something that really doesn't have to have any power over you whatsoever. That's the beautiful thing of some of the work that we do in coaching.
I'm just writing something down. I had 2 points I wanted to share and I lost one of them. So I'll talk about the other one. Okay. One of the other ways we give our power away is when you want something more. Okay. So I was having this discussion today with somebody for a pre-screening. And one of the ways we give our power back. So I'm a spiritual teacher. Most of you know that. And if you didn't already, I'm a psychic intuitive medium. Whether you believe it or not, that's my truth. And so I spent 34 years or 31 years not embracing that side of myself. While I still knew that I had those capabilities, I didn't embrace it. I didn't vocalize it. I didn't tell everybody that, hey, this is who I am and what I'm capable of. And so when I finally did open to that and start actually saying the words, because when you awaken spiritually, saying I'm psychic or I'm a medium to somebody else, you're like, oh God, I wonder what they're going to think. And like, what's the reaction going to be? And I gave them power in that reaction. Right? I gave away my power worrying about what they would think. And it wasn't until I had the confidence within myself to go, one of my family members or former family members was like, what, you're psychic now? And I'm like, I've always been, I just never told you, right? Your friends and family can take your power, or you give them your power. When you're trying to create something or you're dreaming of something more and you're starting to embrace that, right? It takes courage and confidence to embrace that. When you've given your power away to your loved ones and your families and your acquaintances, their opinion can sway. Their opinion can take your power from you. And it can create a reaction, whether that be reactions are emotional. So it can create an emotional reaction to you where you stop making that effort or you stop doing what you want to do to move forward. So that is another point. We do give our power away to our loved ones, to our friends and family. And that keeps us stuck too, because we're giving them that power to say, oh, well, I don't believe you, or I don't think you're good enough. And then we're like, well, am I good enough? And we start giving our power away that way too.
Yeah. And I mean, I think also when you have some of those doubts, like if it's something new like this or something that you've, haven't told people in the past, and it's all sort of fresh and new and it's somewhat challenging, you have some doubts, right? You probably have some insecurities, you have some fears. And then so somebody says something to you and it kind of lands, right? Because you already kind of believe part of it already. So then that's when you're giving your power away, because you sort of give in to, something that's landed, something that really touches you. But if you didn't believe it, then it wouldn't bother you so much, right? Like if I said, Melissa, I hate your blue hair, you would just be like, what are you talking about, lady? But, if I said, you're telling people that you're a psychic now, and what do you think? And if you were still a little bit shy or still a little bit insecure about that, then that could really land. And then if you give it power, if you take it, if you believe it, whatever it is, then that's when it's sort of like a domino effect and sort of makes you feel worse. And then,
yeah,
as you said, you give up, right?
And that's the thing. We have these emotional reactions, right? And the difference between response and reaction, or reacting and responding, is a reaction is emotional. It is completely out of an emotional reaction to something. It's like the fight or flight. There is no logic to it. It is, I am backed into a corner. You've hurt my feelings. I'm going to instantly react. And that's where a lot of regret and a lot of, grief and shame, blame, and guilt come into play, because you've reacted without thinking. When you respond, it's, okay, so you don't like my blue hair. And I did have blue hair a couple of years ago. You don't like my blue hair. That's your opinion, and that's great. Like, I mean, you don't have to get blue hair, but I love it. I think it's great, right? My favorite color is blue. So that, it decides the way that you respond to things and the way that you react to things. And again, that's another form of giving your power away, is giving people the ability to control your emotions, right? I have what is it? I have the Rockstar method. So I have this methodology that I've created, and what it does is it helps you learn how to control your emotions. You can be in an absolute crazy, stuck, feeling like you're overwhelmed, screaming at the world state, and this will allow you to take back your control. When you start to take back control, you control your emotions, you control your mental health, you control your actions, you control your actions and the things that you do to move yourself forward. But all of that comes down to, a few key components. Number one, knowing who you are, right? So let's get into, how to start taking your power back and how to stop giving it away. What would you suggest would be your number one go-to for taking your power back and not giving it away?
I think it's developing that awareness that you always have a choice how you react to your external circumstances. So that can be another person, that can be an event, it can be the weather, it can be the economy, it can be politics, it can be whatever it is. But you always get to choose how you show up, how you respond, how you want to think, which ultimately creates how we feel and do and act and, create those results in our lives. So it's to start with it to understand that that's where your power is. You always have a choice, and to gain that awareness in the moment of when you are starting to give away your power, when you are starting to show up in a way that you don't want to, because you are reacting to a circumstance. The circumstance is always going to be neutral, right? It's never going to be good or bad or right or wrong. It's our interpretation. It's what we're thinking about in the moment of this circumstance or this situation.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, I'm working in Lebanon right now, so in the Middle East, and the driving here is like off the charts. Like it's insane, driving backwards, forwards, upside down, like just like, it's just chaos. And when I first arrived, I was driving to the office, and it was a 6-kilometer journey in the morning. And people would be, they would just come on to like, cut me off, and, no signals. Most of them didn't have their brake lights working properly. They would just like, it was mayhem. And I would get so upset. And I would honk my horn, and I'd be waving at the guy. They didn't care because they were all driving like that, right? And so then I was the one who was losing my mind, and I would get to work all frustrated and upset in the mornings, and and I finally realized that, first of all, the guy driving didn't care. And second of all, like, I literally had a choice, that I was giving my power away to this guy who was paying absolutely no attention to me, which, he wasn't gonna change the way he was driving, but I was working myself into a state because of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And so it was in that moment that, I remember that very first time I was driving the road, and this guy just came out in front of me, cut me right off. And I could feel myself physically reacting. And I was like, okay, wait, do I want, like, I literally thought, do I want to give this guy my power and get upset and stressed out? And I was like, okay, no, no. And that was the beginning of my journey to just sort of relax and, and really start to be aware of when I was reacting in a way that, wasn't serving me. It wasn't helping, and it made me feel terrible.
And we do it all the time, right? My 13-year-old daughter, soon to be 14, her and I are going through this cycle right now where she feels controlled, and I don't blame her, right? You feel whatever you feel. I am the type of parent where I've always told my kids, you are allowed to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. Absolutely whatever, right? If you're raging at me and you're mad at me and you're feeling like I'm controlling me or controlling you, absolutely feel it. But don't take it out on me, because it's your fault. And so lately she's been on this kick. So she has a couple chores. Now, we don't have chores because you get allowance. I had a very good friend of mine teach me when my children were a little bit younger that, chores aren't a reward-based system. Chores are, you're part of this family. You create the mess. You are part of creating the mess. It's not all on mom to clean it. And so they have responsibilities, right? Clean your room, clean your bathroom. We have cat litter because I have 6 cats. So that's one of her chores, her responsibilities. And so we were talking about it the other day. She's like, I don't want to. And I'm like, clean your bathroom. So it was all about the bathroom. And I'm like, clean your bathroom. Her bathroom was disgusting. She's the only one who uses it. I'm like, you need to clean your bathroom. It stinks. And so she didn't want to do it. And I said, okay, you don't want to do it right now. Like, my husband and I were talking to her, and we were like, give me a time. Either tell me I'm going to do it by 4 p.m. or I'm going to do it in the next 20 minutes or whatever. Give me a time frame, right? Like, what's your time? She goes, I don't know. And so instead of giving me a time and working with me through that compromise, she sat on the stairs and pretended that she was mute and had nothing to say. And so I started to get mad, of course, because, I'm that parent. And I said, you have 3 seconds to get off that now and go do your chore. Like, I'm done. I'm done. Go do it. Right. And she says, you're trying to control me. And so I'm like, if you'd like to see what control really looks like, I can be an army parent for you. She didn't like that idea. But I sat her down and I said, do you understand what control really looks like? And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, well, you don't, though. I said, I gave you control. I said, you had the control to tell me when you wanted to do it. You had the control of deciding whether or not you were going to get up and just do it now, or whether you were going to give me a time, or whether you were going to argue with me. I said, you are in control. You have that choice, and every choice has an outcome. Whether it's good, positive, negative, doesn't matter. There's always an outcome. So teaching her that she's always in control, she always has that choice. Everybody has that. You and I have that. Our viewers have that. You always have a choice. You're always in control. It may not feel like it, but you get to control your emotions. You get to control your body. You get to control. There are times where you're not in control because you are too young to have control. Maybe you don't understand. I'm talking extreme scenarios where you're kidnapped and whatever. There's a lot of situations where you're not in control. But for an everyday person, you have control. And when you learn that you have control, you learn, one, that you've created where you're at. Number two, you learn you can create something different, right? And you have the power to do that. So for me, it's understanding that you have the choice, you have the control, you have the power to change it. And that's one step of taking back your power is I'm in control. I make the choice. I get to decide. Like you said with the road rage, I absolutely have road rage. Manitobans, so I'm in Canada. So Manitobans, friendly Manitoba, until you get in a car. Or you disrespect us, one of the two. Our favorite thing is I'll walk down the street and be nice to you and I'll say hi to you, but as soon as you're rude, I'll throat punch you. We don't actually do it. Most of us don't, but that's the thought process for Manitobans. But with that, if I walk down the street and somebody calls me a bitch, I'll be like, yeah, your point. I am. I will wholeheartedly own that. Or, I'll sit there and go, well, you can think that. Like it doesn't, that word doesn't hurt me, right? It doesn't have any power. Now, if you're somebody who doesn't like curse words or you don't like being called names, you've given power to those words. And while words absolutely do have power, again, you have the choice to say, oh, they just called me a bitch. Oh my God. Like, do I react? Do I sit here and engage? Do I just walk away? Like, you have that power. And when you react, you give the other person the power to say, I got you.
Exactly. Yeah.
I almost think that's like a rage thing. So I'm going to ask you this question. Sorry to interrupt again. I was going to let you speak there, but one of the things I question with people is, if I want something done, have you ever gotten so mad that you just clean? Like you actually get things done when you're angry, right? Like the anger is a motivation. People don't realize this. Trauma, negativity, any negative emotion can be used as motivation. It can be used as fuel, right? You will crash and burn after, but you can use it as fuel in the meantime. I've gotten so angry that I just want to clean, or I'm blaring my music, or I'm driving in my car and I go, because that, like, it's motivation for me to just get something done.
Right. Yeah. I think when you get upset like that, you have a lot of energy. So you sort of want to, and I do tell my clients, like if they're, at a meeting or having a conversation, like if they can take 5 minutes, go to the bathroom, shake it off, like sort of release some of that energy. And I think that's very similar to what you're saying is, you have all of this emotion and all of this energy so that you can use it to, and it needs to be expended basically.
Yeah. Another way that I meant that too, though, is that if you realize that you're giving somebody else your power, right? Like a past relationship. And that's why what's one of my favorite examples. If you're giving your ex that cheated on you your power, how angry does that make you? Like that just fuels you to want to take your power back and go, I'm not letting that person win. Like, in business, I was talking to my husband the other day and I'm like, I'm going to succeed at this. We just started a new business. I said, I'm going to succeed at this just to prove everybody wrong. And I'm just going to laugh when they go, oh, well, it did work. And like, that fuel to you can use that negative energy to be like, nope, you're not winning. I'm taking my power back. You don't control me. And flipping it around.
Yeah. You don't have to make it mean yourself if you don't want to. You can take it, leave it, you know, decide whether it serves you, whether it doesn't. And, most, like I would say 99.9% of the time, somebody's saying something or doing something, it's about them. It's not about you, but it's about what they're thinking and what they're feeling.
Yep.
And so you don't need to take any of that on ever, because it doesn't have to mean anything about you ever.
Yeah. We did one on how to take a compliment. We did that episode a week or two ago, how to take a compliment. One of the things I said was that when somebody gives you a compliment, or gives you the opposite of that, I can't remember. I'm losing my mind at this point. When somebody gives you, that's their perspective. It has literally nothing to do with you. If somebody gives you a compliment and you don't believe it, it has nothing to do with you. That's what they see. That's what they see when they look at you. You don't have to see that. You just say thank you, right?
Yeah.
So somebody degrades you and says, "Oh, you're fat, or you're ugly, or you're a bitch." You just go, "Okay." Like, that's their perspective. It has nothing to do with your power and your self viewpoints. I could be called all of those things, and I'm just sit here and go, okay, like, we can't all be picture perfect, and I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah, and
unique.
Yeah, and I think people just have different tastes and different interpretations of things. I mean, at the most basic example, you can take movies or books or music. And one movie, somebody will think it's fantastic, and someone else will think it's terrible, and they don't want to watch it, right? They have no interest. Same movie, absolute same movie. So what's the difference? It's the person's thoughts. It's how they're interpreting it. It's what they like at that. And that's the same for everything. People are no different. So you don't have to take any of it on.
And none of it is right or wrong. So I'm going to end this with one of the examples I love to share. You can have identical twins who grow up in the same household, same experiences, alcoholic parent, abusive, all of that. And those two twins will grow up. One will become abusive and alcoholic. One will never touch a drink. Neither one of them's right, and neither one of them's wrong, right? They both have their own issues they're dealing with, their own perspectives they're dealing with. They both have trauma from it. They're just handling it different. And again, it comes down to personal power and perspective, right? How do you use the situation? How do you embrace it? How do you, what are your actions and reactions? So giving away your power, you're allowing it. You may not be consciously being allowing it, but you're allowing it. And think of this, and I keep telling people, I'm not calling you out. It feels like it, but I'm not calling you out. If you had the power to create where you're at now, think of the power you can create, or the power you can use to recreate where you're going. That's the power. You have the power to create and recreate absolutely anything in your life, as long as you have the confidence, knowledge, tools, and resources to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Patience, focus, and just keep showing up. Just keep going, keep showing up, keep taking the next step.
Finding
you can get
keep swimming. Keep swimming. My daughter's doing Finding Nemo in school, so
okay.
It's my go-to right now. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we get going?
I mean, I think, in terms of this taking back a power process, it is a skill, and it is something that we need to learn and to work at. And so, as you said, just keep going, and you have the ability, but really just knowing that anything is possible, and that you can learn this, and you keep working away at it. You just need to be patient with yourself, keep showing up, and eventually you will get there. But it does take time, it does take effort, it does take practice, but it's possible to develop that skill and to bring, back the control over your emotions, over your reactions, and to be able to make that choice on a regular basis about how you want to respond and how you want to show up in any situation.
Yep, exactly. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today, Trista. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. All right. For everybody watching or catching the replay, if you'd like to reach out to Trista, you can do so. Her links are in the description of this episode. Feel free to reach out, ask her any questions, and connect with her for more information on what she does. So today's episode, of course, has been sponsored by Phoenix Identity. Go and check them out. If you're interested in learning about the Rockstar method or the Smarter method, which are the methods that will help you learn how to take back control of your emotions and your life, go and do that. Join a Phoenix Identity, grab the clarity session. I'm your host, Melissa Krechler. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon, morning, or evening, depending on where you're watching. And if you would like to be a guest speaker, guest blogger, or if you'd like to see your brand featured in our sponsor list, then join us at justalivetv.com or message us across our social platforms. Lots of love. I'm Melissa Krechler, your host, and I will see all of you on the next episode. Bye.